Well, hi, I'm Rick Reiff, and welcome to Inside OC. The state budget begins to take hold in Orange County. Now bus routes are set to disappear. The DA protests a supervisor questioning the cost of his death penalty cases. Costa Mesa officials say no way to the governor's plan to sell the fairgrounds. We debate these issues and more on this special edition of Consider This. And joining me to do so, Gene Pasco, former political journalist and current director of the Orange County Archives. Steve Young, lawyer and former Democrat congressional candidate, and Republican pollster Adam Probolsky. Welcome all.
Thank you.
So, Adam, make the case, or Steve, let's go to you first. Make the case that the GOP is in bad shape.
I don't think your show's long enough right now. Declining registration in Orange County, losing seats. I see them losing influence in the national setting. Whatever it may be, they are off message. They haven't found the language to speak to people that resonates with them. And the Democrats are moving forward. It is definitely a Democratic year. And I'm interested to see how they reestablish themselves, because the Republicans aren't going away. It's a pendulum that goes back and forth. The Republicans will come back. I'm more interested in seeing what they anchor to that brings them back, other than what their problems are now.
So you do believe in the laws of physics that they will come back?
I do.
Okay, so Adam, although he doesn't know how that's going to happen, but there is a sense I'm gathering now among Republicans on national, state, local, there's some hope. Make the case for this downtrodden, disgraced party. Make the case for the Republican Party.
The pendulum does swing. There is a lot of concern over one-party rule today in Washington and essentially one-party rule in Sacramento. People are concerned that we don't have a voice at all anymore. The idea that local control will make a difference and that people are going to activate on a local level and take back legislative seats and congressional seats.
Doesn't the Republican Party have to have more than just, well, don't you want an alternative?
Well, sure, and a leader will, or leaders will rise. That's what happens. That's how the resurgence happens. Today, it's Newt Gingrich and others telling us the philosophy that we need to get back to. And tomorrow, we'll have people like Romney and others who will get up there in front of the camera and be the ones that take us to the next election.
Gene, you be the arbiter here. What do you see? I mean, what do you see as the shape that the GOP is in right now?
Well, I think they're looking for a leader and a cogent message that they can get out there. But I think both parties have to be a little worried, because the largest growing segment that we've seen for years of voters is the decline to state folks, about 20% in California.
But right now they're going Democrat. Right.
Well, they're voting that way, but then again, I mean, you have to, as Adam pointed out with this recent poll that he did, you have to have messages for those folks, and we're going to see an open primary come back on the ballot in 2010, and that could have a huge impact actually in both parties.
I gave Steve a shot. Adam, what is the problem with the Democrats? Why should the Democrats be worried?
Well, today, the Obama administration is doing everything to hurt the Democratic Party. They're taking over car companies and selling off pieces, handing ownership to our major manufacturing base over to the unions, and spending wildly.
They don't seem to be rushing into health care with all of the vigor and excitement. That it almost seems like some Democrats are saying, whoa, let's not go too fast here.
I think they saw what happened to GM when they got involved, and the idea of them doing the same thing with health care.
So you're saying that even though Obama's still very personally popular, the Democrats are beginning to plant or sow the seeds of their demise?
I think they already have.
Did I tee that one up for you, Adam?
They already have. The fact that they control everything concerns people
Steve,
greatly.
how about on the state level? Let me go there, because that's national, and maybe we'll work down the local here. You alluded to it. But on the state level, where's the leadership? The Democrats do, after all, control the state legislature. I don't see them. All I see them is saying, you can't cut this, you can't cut the safety net. I don't see where they're saying what they're going to do. Don't they have some responsibility to fix this mess?
I frankly think that they do, and here's the real problem, and I'm not going to defend any Democrats on this.
If you don't, who will here on this panel?
Well, I'm sorry, you've got the wrong panel. The problem I see is if you had a problem in your personal life, I've been up and down with businesses, etc. If you have a problem, what you do is you look at what expenses can you cut. Your cable, your newspaper, you stop going out for dinner. You cut those out. You figure out where you can get additional income, a job at McDonald's or whatever, so you up the income, and then you set a plan for paying off the credit cards at the highest rate first, And then the fourth thing you do is you don't go back. I haven't seen anything like that coming out of Sacramento. It is actually the way that we would personally approach a personal challenge like this. And until we do it, I don't think any of the solutions are going to work.
Gene, you're a former reporter. Is the media are they giving the Democratic legislature a bit of a free pass on this stuff?
Well, those that are left, I think, tend to listen.
Those in the media who are left.
Right, tend to listen to the establishment, and the Democrats are the establishment up there. And actually, you'll see more activity and criticism coming in from bloggers and that sort of thing. But, you know, we're still...
I think we do see the labor unions now beginning to put pressure, and I think Democratic politicians are in a tough spot. I think both parties are really challenged right now. Well, the battle continues between the supervisors and the sheriff over concealed weapons. David Nazar has the story.
The board reviewed the issue of the February 2009 grand jury report titled "Let the Sheriff Do Her Job" regarding Sheriff Sandra Hutchins revoking the carry concealed weapons permits. The grand jury basically told supervisors to back off. Part of the battle began last year when Hutchins was verbally attacked at this public meeting. The sheriff was a target of much criticism from certain elected officials, a number of permit holders, and eventually even some in the media, all of whom cited a violation of Second Amendment rights. However, the grand jury concluded that no civil rights were violated and said, in part, a sheriff has the discretion to make sure that the applicant meets the criteria of good cause. Nevertheless, on Tuesday, 4 of the 5 supervisors took issue with the grand jury taking on this issue. Only Supervisor John Morlock took a stance agreeing with the grand jury that the handling of the CCW permits by Sheriff Hutchins was proper policy. Morlock wants the sheriff to continue to enforce the law as she sees fit without interference. Also at the meeting, Assistant Sheriff Jack Anderson reiterated to the board that it is appropriate to examine the permits that had been previously granted under the Mike Corona administration, especially when many argue the former sheriff issued hundreds of those permits to people whose main qualification appeared to be political and financial support.
That's enough to make a new sheriff want to look at what's out there. So she ordered an audit of all CCW files. At the time, we had 1,133 CCW holders. We went through every file methodically, looking at their good cause, making sure the documents were there to support that good cause.
In addition, Anderson says before anything was decided, the Sheriff's Department sent letters out to about 400 people asking for additional information.
As of today, 97 people have had their CCW revoked or expired. There might be a few more.
And for just cause?
They never had good cause, or the good cause went away.
The grand jury, in its report, said in part that there should be a brand new review of all gun permits that have been issued to non-law enforcement people. It should be done in a legally proper fashion so the department can start anew. The grand jury went on to say that anyone who is qualified and deserving of a gun permit will get one. Those who are not will be denied. Despite the report's findings, Supervisor Chris Norby says the county has a right to advise Sheriff Hutchins on this matter.
Saying let the sheriff do her job is a very curious title. We certainly have the right to state our views as citizens, and we owe it to her, especially since, unlike the governor or the president, the sheriff was appointed by this body, by 3 members of this body, and we really owe it to her to help her do her job better so she doesn't get into these kinds of situations.
Board Chair Pat Bates agrees that the law does give the sheriff discretion to determine who gets a concealed weapons permit. However, Bates says the county is also mindful of its citizens.
I want both the sheriff to be able to do her job. She is the number one in charge of protecting us all from the bad guys. But I want the people in this county to know that this board stands for their constitutional rights.
The county cannot compel the sheriff to change any legally permissible policy that was developed in regards to the CCW permits. However, supervisors hope they can encourage the sheriff to shape the new policy within legal limits in a manner that meets the needs of the public. In Santa Ana, David Nazar.
Well, Gene, as that piece shows, the honeymoon is over. What's interesting is, as we sit here today, this is the 1-year anniversary of Sandra Hutchins being appointed the sheriff of Orange County. Factoring in this controversy, everything else, how is she doing so far?
Well, compared to Sheriff Corona, I think she's getting an A. But on her own, I think folks have had some concerns about her, and she's looking at a re-election or a tough election to actually win election to the job. But at this point, her biggest challenge now is the $28 million that the supervisors appear ready to cut out of her budget. She's going to have to lay off people, and that's huge when it comes to the contract cities and how much law enforcement is out there for
I think
folks.
we'll be talking about those cuts in our next segment. Steve, Jean gives her an A. What kind of a grade do you give her so far, and why?
I think I would agree with Jean. Maybe not an A, maybe a B+. She has done a couple of things that were important for the county. She has restored stability and confidence in the Sheriff's Department. She is facing a political challenge on two levels, though. Number one is this issue, like your story told, about the CCW issue, or CW concealed weapons permits. That is going to become an NRA issue, and I have to disclose, I'm a member of NRA. I grew up with guns. I happen to agree with her. I think that we should review all these people to make sure that if you've got a concealed weapons permit, you deserved one, but there are some who are not quite of my own opinion. The other issue is the one that Jean said about the budget and how elimination of public safety protections, which is what you're talking about when you're cutting the sheriff's budget, how that is going to affect the people on the street, because public safety is government's main responsibility, and the Board of Supervisors is crippling our sheriff. I'd like to see them cut their pensions they just gave themselves and eliminate some of their redecorating they did at the Board of Supervisors offices before we start taking sheriffs off the beat. That's my
well,
beef.
you're talking pennies to dollars here, But anyway,
but it's principle.
Okay, and Adam, as one of those who now walks the streets unprotected because Sandra Hutchins took your gun away, tell me, what kind of a grade would you give her so far?
On the pass-fail rate, I'd give her the fail. She's brought LA-style policing to Orange County, and that's not what Orange County wants. We don't want LA-style policing in Orange County. We want our own brand, and we don't.
What does LA-style policing mean?
Well, when she brought her troops to the Board of Supervisors and shook people down as they went into a public meeting, people do not take kindly to go into a public meeting, a public place where you're supposed to have public discourse, and she's having her deputies shake them down. I favor, and most of Orange County favors, a permissive style of permits for people who are law-abiding citizens who want to be able to carry guns to protect themselves.
What do you think of that, Steve? She's been too heavy-handed.
I don't see it. I don't go to the Board of Supervisors meetings as often as apparently Adam does. But what may happen in that one forum is not the issue that the voters, myself included, want to see. I want to see safe streets. And I don't understand what he means by LA-style politics. If we've got fewer sheriffs on the street policing the streets, we've got a problem.
Let's talk about that in the next segment. Jean, just finally, politically, all right, so there are some people upset with the sheriff. The public, probably, as Steve says, unless there's big cuts, aren't going to care that much. Politically, is she threatened? Could there be a political, who would launch this political challenge to her?
Well, certainly Chief Walters in Santa Ana has talked about possibly running. She is vulnerable just in the sense that she was appointed. She hasn't won election to this spot. It's a very attractive
job. Do you think
job.
we'll see a real drag-out, if you had a guess, are we going to see a drag-out primary, or do you think things will fall in place for her?
I think she's going to have challengers.
Okay.
I do too.
The Insider's next, and then bye-bye bus routes. Now it's time for the OC Insider from the Orange County Business Journal. Well, what kind of company is managing to grow in this recession? Well, try these guys. Mesa Safe Company of Huntington Beach. It says people and businesses are more worried about thieves and burglars, and some folks don't trust banks with their cash anymore. The company used to be just online, but now its safes are also being sold in Costco, Staples, and other big box stores. Last year, Mesa Safe took in about $3 million. This year, it expects to do $10 million. Well, we recently told you that this guy, Scott Flanders, was being courted for the top job at Playboy, and now he has it. Flanders says he'll continue to live in OC, but of course he'll be leaving his current job, CEO of Freedom Communications, parent of the Orange County Register. Interestingly, despite its global notoriety, Playboy, with annual sales of about $250 million, is only about half as big as Freedom. Apparently, the internet and changing tastes have been even harder on Hugh Hefner's cheesecake than on newspapers. Well, that's it for The Insider. How's the economy impacting Orange County? That's next. And I'm back with Gene Pasco, Steve Young, and Adam Probolsky. Well, Gene, a lot of headlines now about the county making cuts, preparing to make cuts, cut public safety. How will the average citizen in Orange County actually feel the impact of these cuts?
Well, when you look at what the sheriff is saying about the budget cuts in her department, she says it could take longer for folks to show up to answer a call. More folks could be let out of jail. I mean, we've seen in the past a lot of talk about how disastrous budget cuts will be, and then average folks didn't really feel them. Right. I think this time, both with the county situation, $100 million in the hole, as well as the state situation where they may take even more from Orange County, we're going to really start to feel
it looks
this.
that way. I'm always the skeptic because we always hear this and it never happens, but this is the time we are going to feel it. Well, anyway, the OCTA is cutting bus service by about 10% to save about $8.5 million. Reporter David Nazar has the story.
Last year in Orange County, there were nearly 70 million boardings of OCTA buses, and 50% of those boardings were to go to and from work. That's a good portion of the OC workforce relying on buses. But in September, OCTA will cut 100,000 hours of bus service, and that has riders feeling like they've been thrown under the bus.
It's going to really cut down on my independence. I'm used to getting around.
Nydia Baker says she depends on her 1-hour bus ride every day to get from Anaheim to Cal State Fullerton, where she's a student. Nydia says the cut in service is going to hurt.
I know that there are people who don't have any choice other than to ride the bus, and I'm very worried for them because these are people that are going to lose their jobs, and it's going to just affect us even more.
Jane Reiff doesn't have a driver's license. She relies on OCTA bus service for everything.
It's going to be a catastrophe. People are calling this the second transit holocaust. I apologize for the insensitivity of the term, but it was used to talk about when rail service was removed from the entire United States in the 20s and 30s, and this is as draconian.
This is an awful decision for us. There isn't a member of my board, not one of my colleagues, that likes doing this.
Nevertheless, Amonte says the cutbacks are vital. He says there's no other way around the multi-million-dollar OCTA budget shortfall.
We understand what it means to be transit dependent. We know that working people rely on those buses, that students need to get back and forth to school, that people need them for their health care.
OCTA board member Bill Campbell says this is most likely only the beginning of the bad news.
Today we took out 100,000 service hours and did it essentially by cutting the frequency of service. It's clear to me that if you need to get 300,000, 3 times the amount of cuts that we had today, you're going to be cutting full lines, which not only affects the people using that, but also affects the way you deliver access service. That's going to be brutal.
And OCTA officials say the next round of bus cuts that Bill Campbell just mentioned should be in December. So, Steve, is government now making those cuts that are going to impact people?
That is a cut that is going to impact people, not only the riders, but the employees of the OCTA.
However, 9 out of 10 people in Orange County have never sat in an Orange County bus.
That's true, but 9 out of 10 people in Orange County have not been passing into an economic situation that we are. This is a time when we need to have these types of resources available, because you're going to have more and more people who not only are losing homes to foreclosures, but cars to repossession, who are going to be more dependent upon public transportation. We should be looking at ways to preserve this asset in terms of keeping services going as well as jobs that are already in the county.
Okay. Steve, as a lawyer, let me ask you this one. John Morlock has suggested this scenario. He's not saying he approves of it, but that he sees a scenario now with the state withholding money from local governments. Cities are going to start going bankrupt. The golden lining to that would be that then they could redo their contracts, some of these onerous pension and public employee contracts. Is that a silver lining?
Well, the way of redoing the contracts that he's suggesting is filing Chapter 9 bankruptcy. And I don't understand how you can say, whether you're at the local, state, or federal level, that creating a bankruptcy situation for one of our public entities, be it a city, be it a state, be it the federal government, how that is beneficial for the American people.
Because we're being strangled by these public employee contracts, and that there's something has to be done. The unions are going to voluntarily, it's pretty clear, give these things up. And it's not that they don't deserve it, they don't do a great job, we just can't afford it anymore. So you declare bankruptcy and everything's on the table.
So what do we do with the power of contract? It's just a way of saying we're going to walk away.
You declare bankruptcy? No, it's not abrogating contracts, it's going into bankruptcy.
These people took less in income in exchange for the long-term care that they're going to receive on pension. So now you're going to breach the contract you made with them and the commitment. All right. It's a one-sided deal.
Adam, what do you think?
I think everything's got to be on the table. I think we have to be compassionate and realize that people made plans based upon what was put into effect. We've got to look at everything. And I don't think bankruptcy is a good idea, but it's certainly an option for some municipal governments.
I think it is a good idea, and I'm still consider myself a compassionate conservative. Okay,
what does that mean?
Adam, let's talk about another issue that John Morlock's involved in, is that he kind of asked a question of Tony Rackauckus about how much does it cost for you to be very aggressive in pursuing these death penalty cases, wanting to know what the cost is, and Tony didn't like that, fired off a letter. How do you read this clash here?
The county does have to look everywhere they can to save money. Pursuing death penalty cases is not a place where you're going to save dollars, and it's not a smart place to go. I don't begrudge Morlock for asking the question, although publicly it probably wasn't a very good move. The Rackauckus, the district attorney, pursues less than 10% of the cases that he could pursue for special circumstances for death penalty. Less than 10% of the ones that he could pursue, he pursues for death penalty. And these are heinous cases. These are the Samantha Runyon murder and the folks that were lured onto their boat, and the pregnant woman that was killed and thrown overboard. Just the really, really bad ones. And we need to have that. If you're supportive of a strong law enforcement, if you're supportive of the death penalty, those are the kind of cases you want prosecuted with a death penalty. And
Gene,
we need the district attorney to have that ability.
Surprised at the ferocity of Rackauckus's response here?
No, because I think he takes his job as prosecutor seriously, and he has prosecutorial discretion. And I think he just really reacted to the fact he thought that the board members were using budgetary concerns to tell him how to do his job.
Okay, and we'll probably get more of that. So, Gene, we're almost out of time. We had the passing of one of the giant figures of local politics just the other day. Ralph Clark, age 92, passed away. Tell us about Ralph.
Well, Ralph was a big guy, gregarious, just big in Orange County government. He was former mayor of Anaheim. He's kind of known as the father of public transit and now the OCTA in Orange County. Also known for bringing the Los Angeles Rams down to Orange County. But a lot of the things that he did, the nuts and bolts things on the Board of Supervisors that he may not be known for, include things like having approved the planned communities in Orange County and really this tremendous growth that came about in the 70s and 80s. He's one of these supervisors. He was there for 16 years, and really everybody liked him.
And a Democrat. Back in the day when Democrats probably were even more powerful in Orange County than they hope to become today. You can watch this show and past shows by going to KOCE.org and clicking on Inside OC. My guests have been Gene Pasco, Steve Young, and Adam Probolsky. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again Inside OC.
Inside OC is brought to you by the following.
Lennar.com. Today's new homes. Everything you want. Everything you need. That's the logic of Lennar. Lennar.com.
Support comes from City National Bank, providing complete financial solutions to entrepreneurs, their businesses, and their families on the way up in Orange County for more than 30 years. City National Bank believes in the power of the entrepreneur. On the web at cnb.com.
The City of Anaheim. Founded in 1857, Anaheim is Orange County's original city and California's 10th largest city. Information on living, working, or visiting Anaheim is available at www.anaheim.net.
The law firm Stradling, Yonka, Carlson & Routh, a full-service corporate law firm in Southern California, celebrating 30 years, serving businesses and the communities of Orange County with valuable legal advice.
As a professional driver, focus is the key. The same is true if you're a teenager learning to drive. Turn off your cell phone. Keep the talking to a minimum. Oh, and don't drive as fast as me. Your car doesn't have a parachute. The Auto Club, we're always with you.